So it should be live on my channel. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over some practice problems. Just so you guys have a reference to what we're doing. Cool. That's this. All right. So here's the question. We have, how fast would a car have to be going initially to travel 458 meters in 3 seconds with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared? Okay. So what I'm going to do is going to insert table. Okie dokie. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write down what we need to find. All right. So the question says, how fast would a car have to be going initially to travel 458 meters in 3 seconds with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared? So what is the find? What are we asked to find? There's Nathaniel. Second, guys. Anybody want to unmute and let me know? What is it asking us to find? Yes, so it is asking us to find v sub I, all right, or the initial velocity. So if I switch over here, so these are going to be our, say this is our knowns. Switch the in. These are our find. Okay, so I need to find v sub I, which has units of meters over seconds. Okay, this is what we don't know. Does everybody agree with that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then, after we figure out what we know, what we need to do is we need to write down what we need to find. The next thing is we need to write down what we know. So the way that I do this is I go through the problem, I look at the values that are in the problem. So the first number that I hit is the 458 meters. Okay. So when I do this, I go ahead and it's 458 meters. Now I know that the units of meters corresponds with which one of these? I've got my distance or displacement. I've got my initial velocity, final velocity, acceleration, and then time. So yes, the unit of meters goes with displacement. Okay, so this would be the displacement given in the problem. Cool. Let's switch back to here. All right, so that takes care of the 458. Then the 3 seconds, the unit of seconds is obviously time. So if I switch back over here, so time is going to be 3 seconds. And then lastly, I have 3 meters per second squared. So if you're not familiar, or if you don't remember, the meters per second squared goes with acceleration. Okay. So it's 3 meters over seconds squared. And that's acceleration. Now, is there any issue so far? Is everybody up to date with that? Everybody cool with this? If there's any confusion, I need to know. If not, then I'm going to keep going. Okay. Now remember, there is a raise hand feature. So if you have a question, you don't want to interrupt me because you're polite, then you can use the raise hand feature, and then I can call on you. Okay. Now, the next step is I need to find an equation or an expression from this sheet I need to figure out which one of these to use. Base just a tad. Okay. I need to figure out which one of these equations to use. So the process on how I do that is I need to find an equation that has v sub I equals. So v sub I equals, and then some sort of combination of d, t, and a. All right, these are the only variables that should be on the right side. Okay, so if there's any other variable that's over on the right side, I cannot use it. The variable that's left over that I don't know anything about, if I look back over here, there's 5 variables when we're dealing with these problems. Okay, I'm asked to find v sub I. I know displacement, I know acceleration, and I know time, but I do not know final velocity. So anything that has final velocity in the equation, I cannot use. Okay, so v sub f, the thick boy. All right, so anything that has v sub f in it, I mark out. Okay, so I want v sub I equals. So let's go ahead and circle all of the equations that start with v sub I. All right, so I start with this column here, and I'm going to circle all the ones that have v sub I. So this one has v sub I. Then I go to the next column. This one has v sub I, right there. This one has v sub I. And then lastly, this one has v sub I. Okay. All the other equations I cannot use because they're not solved for my variable. Cool. Now this applies in my class because I've already done the algebra for you. Okay. Is everybody good so far? Everybody okay? All right. Now, when I go through it, anything that has v sub f, I can mark out because I don't know any value for v sub f. So if there's v sub f in my expression, then I would have v sub I unknown. So that would be an unknown. and I would have v sub f unknown. So I would have two unknowns with one equation, and I cannot solve that. So we're going to go through these four equations that I've circled, and I'm going to cross out any of the ones that have v sub f in the equation. All right, so this first one, that looks good so far. The second one, I've got v sub f, so this one's gone. The second one, or the third one, that has v sub f, so this is gone. And then the last one, there's v sub f, so that one's gone. So that's the process on how to kind of whittle away at this sheet of equations. Okay, so this is the expression that we're going to use. This one right here. Cool. So the expression that we get is v sub I equals d minus 1/2 a t squared divided by t. Cool. So another way to kind of like another tip, another reason why I write it down is so I don't have to keep going back and forth between the two different pages. All right, so just to verify, my equation is v sub I equals d minus 1/2 times a times t squared over t. Go back, d minus 1/2 times a times t squared over t. So I wrote it down right, so I didn't copy anything down wrong. And just to verify, just to triple check to make sure that this is indeed the correct equation, on the left side, I should only have my find. I got a check mark for that. And on the right side, over here, I should only have these variables. So I should only have d, a, and t. So all that looks good. So this is indeed the correct equation to use. Okay? Now, remember, at any point, if you guys get stuck or you're confused or you zone out and you're like, wait, I just missed that, can you go back over that? Please tell me. Okay? Now, anywhere that I have a variable, I have variables here, 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 and there. So I'm going to replace those variables with empty parentheses. So I'm going to write the equation just like before. Actually, why make life harder? I can just do this. So open parentheses. All right. So all I did was I took wherever the variables were and I put empty parentheses. That's all I did. So one of the main reasons why I do this is so I don't lose any order or the structure of the actual expression. All right. Now I'm going to plug in the values. So the value for D is right here, the 458. So 458. The acceleration was 3. The time was 3. Time was 3. Any questions so far? All right. Bear with me 1 second. Pull Desmos up. So our expression was 458 minus 1/2. So 458 minus 1/2. Now, if I continue to write, it's going to continue. It's going to go on to the bottom. Okay. So you have to hit the right arrow, and that kicks it over like that. And then I'm going to switch back. So 3 times 3 squared. So times 3 times 3 squared. Now, in order to get a fraction underneath all of it, what I can do is if I do a closed parentheses after this, notice that it automatically puts an open parentheses like that. And it also gives you a suggestion. I thought it did. And then if I do divide, and then 3. So, let me see if I can. Of course I can't. Constructor mode. Okay. So, by using Desmos, I can look at my equation and make sure that it looks just like the one that I wrote. Okay, does everybody see the 458 minus the 1/2 times 3 squared divided by 3? Okay. So that's why I recommend using Desmos. And which would give me whatever. So then what you can do is if you get a fraction like that, you can just toss it into it like your phone calculator and get a decimal. So I get approximately 148.166666. So this is approximately 148 times 1 or 0.1666 repeating. Got it. Now, if I look at my question, the question says round to the nearest whole number. So what would the nearest whole number be with this? The nearest whole number, I look at whatever is behind the decimal. And if this is if it is greater than 5, well, more specifically, I look at this one. And if it is greater than 5, greater than or equal to 5, then I round up. If it is less than 5, I round down. Not round down. So round down. All right. Now, in order to figure out what the actual value this is going to have to be, I look at the next value. So that's a 6, and that is greater than 5. So that means that this would round up. And then this would be a 2. So if I rounded properly, it'd be 148.2. But it says, like if I was going to round to the nearest decimal point, like round to 1 decimal point, it would be 148.2. But the question is round to the nearest whole number. So the 0.2 is indeed less than 5, so I'm going to round down. So the answer should be 148. All right. And then in the uh, like when we actually put the answers in, you do not put the units. You just do 148, and then I hit next. Cool. Is there any questions about that at all? Now, I do the exact same process. All right. So just as a review, as an overview, the very first thing I do is I look at the word problem, I read through it, and I understand what's going on. Okay. What is the acceleration of a car that starts at 180? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I read through the problem. I figure out what I need to find, like what the objective of the problem is. I figure out what that find value is, the find variable, and I write that down. Then, after I figure out what I need to find, I go through the problem and I look at the values. Sometimes the values are not going to be in the problem, um, but for the majority of the problems, I think, except for like maybe two or three in this assignment, you will have three values in the problem. So if you guys look, I've got 182, I have 95, and I've got 2. So those are three knowns that I'm explicitly given. I even gave you guys the units, so it should help you out even more. Now, after I figure out what the values are, I write those in my knowns. After I've gotten my find and my knowns, I then try to find an equation that has the find on the left side, my knowns on the right side, and then I use my handy dandy equation sheet that I went ahead and solved algebraically. So all you guys have to do is figure out which of these equations you need to actually use. Once you figure that out, after you've narrowed it down, you rewrite the equation just to ensure that you didn't miss anything, those missing squares, square roots, or any of that kind of mess. Then you verify, make sure that the find is on the left, and then everything that's over on the right side is in your knowns box. If that passes the test, then you can start plugging in the values. Anywhere that I've got a variable, I put open parentheses, and that's how I got the, I guess you can call it the scaffolding of the actual equation. And then I plug in the values, and then after this, I plug this into Desmos. Now, again, in order, like the reason why I say use Desmos is because Desmos, if it's in this form, if it looks just like this, then it'll calculate it properly. Okay. If you use your phone calculator or if you use like a TI-83, it's going to look weird. And if you've got anything that's, if you've got two things in the denominator, or if you got a square root that's kind of weird, then you have a high possibility of it getting it wrong because the way that it displays it is weird. All right. So after you get the value from Desmos, that's the answer. And you do that for every single one of the problems. Okay. Now, again, it's due tomorrow at midnight. So you get 20 points formative just for completing it. But you'll also get 40 points formative for every question that you get, or you're going to have 40 points formative for accuracy. So for every question that you get right, you get 2 points. Okay. All right. So it is 9:16. So I'm a little bit over right now. So at this point, you guys are free to go. And make sure that you message me if you have any questions. If you guys don't have the Remind app, my Google Voice number, you can send me a text through that. If you go to my Mr. Applewhite's information on Canvas, I'm not going to put it out on YouTube. But if you go to my Canvas page and you look at Mr. Applewhite's information, like contact info, it's in there. So you can shoot me a text, and that way, or you can even call me on that. It's not my personal number, but it's a Google Voice number. Cool. All right. So on that note, you guys are free to go. I'll see you all tomorrow.